that have happened since our last meeting in December. I hope you guys had a great vacation time and that you have been thinking a little bit at least about what the campaign season is going to be looking like for yourselves now, as we're in sort of the second half of Miss President US for the year. Today's session is a follow-on from, so the last session was finding your voice, and we thought about different ways that we can find our voice. And now this week, we are going to be exploring ways we can use our voices. So one thing that happened in the interim period since the last time we got together is that the Wilton League of Women Voters, which is a nonpartisan organization in Wilton, Connecticut, invited speakers from Ms. President US to come and share their experience in the Ms. President program. And we had some really awesome volunteers from our program who came and talked about what it's been like to be part of Ms. President US. We had Elise, Maggie, and Bella gave her perspective as a mentor also. We wanted to take a moment to give a shout out to you guys because the League of Women Voters was absolutely floored, so impressed by your public speaking skills and by your excitement about the program. And it made them super excited about the program too. So thank you so much for sharing, for speaking, for practicing your skills, and for just sort of radiating excitement. It was wonderful for all of us. Thank you. Well done. So far in our season this year, we've already examined women's history and talked about leadership. We've met some local leaders, we've met some state leaders, and we explored finding our voice. And today's session is about using those voices. In subsequent sessions, we're going to be looking a little bit more into communications and media and sort of the other aspects of running for office and what those other roles on a team might look like. And then once things settle down a little bit, we're going to be hearing from federal leaders. It looks like our field trip is probably going to be an online field trip like everything else this year, but we're still working behind the scenes on how we can explore the state capitol. And then we'll have our campaign and election, which we're going to be starting to get pretty excited about today. So I wonder if you remember some of the issues that we've already talked about. These were the issues that were generated a few sessions back. These were the things that you mentioned were on your minds a few sessions ago. Does anybody remember any of the things that the mentors spoke about in our last session when we heard from 4 of our mentors who are involved in various activities, and they have sort of platforms that they're already working on? Does anybody remember some of those issues that they work on? I can't see you guys today, unfortunately. I have a different setup, so go ahead and shout out.
But you have to unmute yourself first.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the mentors spoke about food allergy awareness. I think that was Bella. Anti-Semitism, environmental work, and girls' education and literacy. Those were 4 big issues that they spoke at length about their involvement in from their work in high school. So given all those issues that we've already started to think about, we wonder if you guys have started to consider things that are really inspiring to you. So we're going to break out into smaller groups with mentors, and we want you to consider what's something that you really care about and why it's important to you.
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay. So as the ideas come in, we'll be able to see them all together. COVID-19 is still a big one. Democracy, I love it. Anti-Semitism, female empowerment, distance, that's a loaded one. Wearing a mask. That could be an interesting one for our debate practice later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. COVID masks, online learning.
How do you put the thing in?
The ideas?
Yeah.
You see the chat? If you see,
Yeah.
if you go to the chat, there's a link in the chat. And if you
Okay,
click on the link, you
thanks.
should be able to enter the ideas that way.
I don't see the link.
I don't see the link in the, oh, there it is. You have to scroll up on the chat. It'll be the last thing.
I came in late, so
Yeah, I just came in and I don't see
I
it.
don't see it. Yeah.
Huh.
Okay. Maybe we can put it in again.
Mom, I see it. So.
We got 32. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's
Yeah?
pretty good.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop sharing and go back to Mrs. Mitchell sharing so that we can go back to our slideshow. But I see riots in DC there.
And
Protest.
if they keep adding to that, it will capture it, correct?
It will. You can keep it. We'll keep it open, and you can keep adding to it the whole time we're here today. And then I'll share the PDF at the end. Okay. So in the interest of time, are you guys seeing the slideshow now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So
hold on. Sorry, you guys. Are you seeing it as a slideshow or my entire screen?
Your screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick problem. When I click on share, it's bringing up almost everyone in the meeting and asking me to share individual links with them. It won't let me share.
Let's share settings rather than screen share.
Oh. Okay.
It's okay.
Present.
We can slide.
Press present. Next to share, it says present.
Thank you.
Beautiful. All right. So in the word cloud, we saw some very different examples of ways to get involved also, not just the content of the platforms that you're in, the issues that you're thinking about, but different ways to get involved as well. So today's session, we're going to be talking about using your voice and various ways that you can use your voice. So it doesn't always have to be vocally. One way to get noticed is by raising your hand. You don't even have to be raising your voice along with it, just raising your hand through the voting process, right? In this picture, some of you may have heard of this really powerful woman. Her name is Samantha Power. She was the US ambassador to the United Nations during the Obama administration. And in this picture, she's doing something incredibly powerful as a person and as a woman. She was in the Security Council at the United Nations, and she was the only woman in the room. And she was raising her hand. In this case, I'm not sure if it was to vote or to speak, but I believe it was to vote. And do you notice the posture? Is there anything you notice about her posture in this picture?
It's very angled.
Sitting straight.
Do you think she's feeling
Confident?
shy?
No, confident.
No. Do you think she's convinced of what she's doing?
No, she
I think
seems
she
worried
looks
that
so
she's doing it.
brave. I think she's a really, really amazing person to look up to, and her involvement in this moment is really powerful as a woman. So raising your hand and being involved is one way to use your voice. Mrs. Mitchell, could you go to the next slide, please? Great. Another way you can get involved and raise your voice is by writing a letter. You can write a letter to your local newspaper or to an elected official who represents you in your district. In this case, on this slide here, this is an example of someone who is young, who is using her voice to share her opinion about the selection of the next Supreme Court justice. This was written a couple of months ago, before Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement was announced. And the girl who wrote this is a friend of ours because she's in our Girl Scout troop. And she submitted a letter to the editor of our local newspaper reflecting what she would love to see on the Supreme Court. As someone who represents her, who looks a bit more like her, because she noticed that there were 5 white males, 1 black male, 2 white females, and 1 Hispanic female on the court, but there were no Asian people like her. And she was hoping that maybe the president could consider someone who looked more like her to be on the Supreme Court. And it's a really powerful way. A lot of people will write letters to the editor that get printed in the newspaper all the time, expressing their opinion. And that's a great way to have your voice heard. So this is a list of some other ways that you can use your voice. 1, contacting your elected officials. You could even go and meet with your mayor, not during COVID time, but you can go meet with your mayor and let them know what you're concerned about. Of course, you've seen lots of protests and rallies, some very peaceful and others a bit more exciting. And sometimes they escalate, sometimes they don't. We've had one in Wilton recently where it was very peaceful and very productive. So you can join a protest or a rally. You could get involved with an organization that you believe in, or you can even start one like some of our mentors have done. You could run for student government. I believe some of our mentors are involved in student government as presidents and vice presidents of their class. But there are other ways too. You can sing like Buffy and Lisa Lee did with us at our last session. You could write poetry. You can make art. I don't know if any of you have been able to go into Central Park and see the new sculpture that's been set there that commemorates the suffragists. So we're going to be speaking about that in a subsequent session, but that's a beautiful way that art is making a statement. And if you're motivated to make art, to raise your voice, that is a beautiful way to do it. But one of the things that Lisa Lee and Buffy were saying in our last session that I hope you heard them say was, let your life speak. This is an expression that means let your actions, the way you live your life, show what you believe in. So today, though, beyond all of those other ways that you can raise your voice, we're here to learn a little bit more about public speaking also. This is really amazing because some of you have a lot of experience with public speaking. Others of you have a lot less experience, but it looks like about 2/3 of you like to speak in public, which is fantastic. It's really awesome. What I'm surprised at is that almost all of you say that even though you like to speak in public, you can't really remember a great speech that you've heard. That's interesting. So some of you said it was clear, inspiring. Maybe it made me feel powerful. I'm interested to know what the other answers are.
Mom?
Yeah?
It's the yes is all the yes. So it's 94% said yes and only 6% said no.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
So most people thought most people could remember the speech.
Oh my gosh, it's the other way around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's fantastic. Okay, wonderful. I hope that when we do some breakout rooms and some sharing, we can hear about what you remember about those speeches and why they were so awesome. But it looks like overpoweringly, it was because they were inspiring speeches.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. One of the participants here today loves public speaking, and I'm going to introduce her so that she can introduce our guest. So our participant who's going to be introducing is Kayla McGuire. She is an 8th grader at Old Saybrook Middle School, formerly from Ridgefield, but moved. She was the 2019 Miss President US of Ridgefield. She's a community activist raising funds for local nonprofits. She received a gold level presidential volunteer award. She's working now on her Girl Scout Silver Award. In addition to all of these things, she plays first chair cello, and she loves cooking, baking, reading, history, and public speaking. Kayla, can we spotlight on you?
Hi, I'm Kyla, and I'll introduce the speaker. So the speaker today is Kathryn Poindexter. She is a professional campaign strategist and has been one for 20 years. She was born in Colorado, but now lives in Washington, D.C. She is the founder of Campaign Greenhouse and believes that every campaign deserves a professional representation, no matter the size of the campaign. And campaign strategy is something that we learn about in Miss President, so it will be interesting to hear from someone who's using that skill as a profession and as a way to help others. So here's Miss Poindexter.
Hi, thanks for having me and being here. Okay, so I do best when I can see everybody's faces. So I'm gonna get my screen to where that is. And then I'm just doing a quick time check also. I still have about 15 minutes for talking and 15 minutes for questions. Great, thank you. Okay, is this y'all's first week back at school? It's Friday of the first week back staring at Zoom all day. Yay. Yeah, it's been a long week for a lot of reasons. Okay, some things I want to know. Use your hand to be your thermometer here. So if it's low, put your hand in your window down here, and if it's high, put it up here. Yeah. Okay, so likelihood that you're going to want to run for elected office at some point in your life. Very low, like not at all, or like definitely for sure. Okay, here's one screen. People are kind of in the middle, some really low. Maggie's off the charts. Okay, let me go to the next screen. Oh, Lisa's off the charts. I'm in the middle. All right. Mirabelle's a little higher. Ayla's right at the top. Great. Okay. I love that. Might see if I can move those hands up a little bit by the time we're done. So I have 3 points I want to make. And then I want to leave a lot of room for questions because there's a lot. I live in DC. I've lived here for a long time. There's a lot going on right now. And I want to make sure that y'all have room to ask questions or have conversations about all the things that are happening, if that's helpful. Okay, and then next question, 94% of you said that you could remember, there was a speech that you remember that was memorable. So now I'm looking for what one thing, I'm looking for a film strip moment. Do you have a picture in your mind from that speech that it created? What one moment was most memorable? What do you remember most about that speech? And if something comes to you really clearly, I'm only looking for 3 or 4 answers, put it in the chat and we'll come back to that. Okay, so speaking in public, a couple of caveats. For most of my professional existence, speaking in public was done in 2 ways. 1, in person on a stage with live humans. 2, through the media, television or radio. This was not a thing for a while. So y'all maybe, and probably are just by hours, much more experienced in having conversations with people through this kind of mechanism. And I bet that your teachers are rock stars at getting engagement. From what I've seen from 1st and 4th grade, which I oversee weekly, the teachers are doing a really great job at knowing how to keep people engaged and participating. So I'm betting that y'all have a bunch more modern ideas about how to do that through this channel. But I think mine transcend all formats. I won't do anything really specific about being on TV or anything. Okay, so I have three points to make, and I put them on a whiteboard board. There you go. These are their graphical representations. I wasn't totally sure if when I wrote on it, it showed up forward or backwards. So we'll see how that goes. You guys already probably know that. Okay, public speaking. Is anybody here like petrified of public speaking? Is anybody's worst fear? I got no's on this page. Lisa, Jennifer, we got a couple, Bella, we got a couple of yeses on my other page. Okay, Allison, this has been a thing that people are super scared of public speaking. And I have, okay, I'm gonna tell you, my first 2 points. So my first point is to use stories. Let's see, did anybody chat in their memorable moments from speeches? Not yet, okay. If you can think about what made a speech memorable, or let's see, has anybody watched videos of like puppies or kittens getting rescued? Like fundraising for animal rescues? Yeah, so anything that you notice about those, they're not like, so does anybody have any idea how many kittens get rescued across the country every year? Me neither. Any idea how many puppies? No. Does anybody remember the name of one of the animals that you watched get rescued? Yeah. Okay, so this is my example. This is case in point. I've been watching a lot of these because I'm, feeling really kittenish at the moment. I don't think I can handle a kitten, but they're really fun to watch. When you want to convince people of something, especially people who want to run for office and people who think about this stuff a lot, we tend to get really nerdy about the reasons why we believe something and all of the data, the numbers that say why other people should believe the same thing we do. Do you know, there were 10,000 kittens who needed new homes in the US last year, and only 70% got new homes. The other 30% lived in foster homes for the rest of I'm like, all right, that doesn't do anything for me. But if you are like, look at this kitten, this is Nico. We found him under an 87 Ford pickup in the rusted out tire well. And he ran right to us. And it was so hot that we had to put little socks on his feet because the ground was hurting his feet. All of a sudden, this is sticking more in your brain, right? You can visualize this little kitten. We called him Nico because he had these little tufts on his ears that no other cat has. You can visualize him in the rusted out wheel well of a car, right? You can visualize him with the little socks. Oh, and we didn't have any, all we could find is Grinch socks from a newborn baby's Christmas kit. So now you're picturing a gray and white kitten with Grinch socks on, right? And this, I'm completely making this up and you're all gonna remember it. So when you are communicating a point to any humans, data and statistics is not gonna serve your interests as well as one story. And my fun example for this is I was working for an organization called the Analyst Institute that does like political science for campaigns. And so my team was, it was like 10, I could describe every demographic box, but these 10 guys fit into every same demographic box together. Like they all had gone to private schools in the Northeast for their political science PhDs. They were all, straight, cis, white guys between 25 and 35. Like it was a very narrow group of people, but they were all people who studied data and statistics for a living. They were supposed to understand data. And I was hired to help them communicate with political consultants, which are the people who help you run for office, put your ads up on television, all that kind of stuff. And so I did all this work collecting data from all the political consultants. I sent out surveys and I collected those survey responses. I did interviews on the phone and I mapped up and I graphed out all the different responses that I got. And then I presented them with my findings. I said, okay, I talked to 300 political consultants and here's what they said. They don't feel like we're communicating with them. They don't, this percentage said this. And these guys were like, no, we haven't heard that. And we send out a newsletter every week. People only ever tell us that they like it. We don't think any of that's true. So I called 2 political consultants and I said, hey, these guys don't believe my recommendations. Can you just shoot an email into our executive director? And so our executive director got 2 emails from 2 people that said, hi, I don't feel like you're communicating with us really well. I don't read the newsletter. What I would really like is, something more targeted to us. And this man whose profession it was to understand data and statistics and who could tell you that we should be paying more attention to data and less attention to stories or anecdotes, ran into my office and said, KP, we got 2 emails. I got 2 emails saying we don't communicate with people enough. We really need to do something about it. I think your plan is great. So no matter how knowledgeable people are about getting information from data, they're still humans. They're still gonna hear individual examples in a way that sticks with them more. And so as you're thinking about things that you care about, if you wanna make a case for a new art wall on the side of a public library, instead of saying, libraries, here are all the libraries that have art walls and they all look good, you're going to want to tell a story. When I walk to the library every day, I see this depressing brick wall. And I spend a lot of time coaching grown-up candidates on this exact point. We could spend months on this whole thing. So just put it in the back of your brain somewhere and remember it later. The more you can connect with a film strip moment, the more you can paint a picture like you're watching a movie trailer, and get some of those details in there. Tell them about the tufted ears and the Grinch socks. The more you can get the sensory details in there, the more memorable it will be. So that's data versus stories. And that's what that says, use stories. And that's point number 1. Okay. People nervous about public speaking. Second point is own your space. I spaced out the word space, see? Oh, if it's backwards, look, I figured out a trick. Haha. Okay, great. So that was the thing that I noticed from that picture of Ambassador Power. Did anybody else notice this? She had her elbow on the desk. She had her papers spread out in front of her. She had occupied that level of her space. It's very interesting going into multi-person meetings where you don't know who's sitting around the conference table and who's sitting in the chairs behind the conference table. You don't know how much space you get at the conference table. And you start getting women who don't start out thinking about how to be a more empowered woman get there really quickly after they start going to multi-person meetings with young men. Young men tend to assume that they belong at the table, that they deserve their 2 feet of space as much as anybody else in the room, that they deserve to raise their hand. And young women often assume that there are other people more important than they are who should take seats at the table or fill up their own space. I think that'll get better. I think y'all are in a better space, especially once you go back into the in-person world. I think folks in your age brackets will do better at this. But when you notice a woman being a boss, notice how she's using her space. And the lovely little speaking trick about this is that it counts for time also. Especially if you're nervous about speaking, you're going to tend to speed up. And I'm pretty young, but people talk really fast for me. Maybe it's because I spent a bunch of time in the South, but I can't, like, I go to a lot of people and I'm like, you got to talk it like, can I tape you and play you back at a slower speed? Because I can't understand everything at the speed to which you're giving it to me. So that's the thing to remember when you start public speaking. You have practiced, you know your content, you're feeling probably excited and maybe a little nervous. And your inclination is going to be to speed up really fast. I'm going to make this point by demonstrating it. You can go very slowly. You can take giant pauses, and people will be more riveted. So I'm very uncomfortable right now because I just said a bunch of stuff with a lot of space in between my words. And I'm like, they have probably played a whole game of Sudoku in between my two sentences. But you guys were paying attention, right? You were waiting for my next word. I learned this when I saw Chelsea Clinton speak in a crowded bar. I usually try to get out of events before the main speaker because I've heard a lot of people speak and they tend to talk too long. But Chelsea got up on stage and she spoke into a microphone very quietly. And instead of trying to capture the attention of the whole bar, she spoke very quietly and very slowly. And everyone like moved towards her and leaned in and stopped their conversations. It was amazing. So whether you're nervous or whether you don't know what to say or whether you forget your word or whether you're just excited, feel free to take plenty of time to take a deep breath, to own your space, and to be comfortable where you are delivering the message. People will wait. It's also fine to be transparent about that. It takes me a while in the morning for my brain to really come online. And often in the mornings, I'll say things like, I am not feeling very articulate about this point right now. So let me come back to it this afternoon. So it's totally fine to be transparent about, let me take a minute about that. Or I'm going to write down that note, 1 second. In a debate, no big deal. Own your space, own your time. Okay, I'm so excited to hear questions and answers and all of that. My last point, I'm going to stick around. We're going to do Q&A right now, and then I'm going to stick around for after the event. So if y'all want to do office hours or ask me questions or get in touch or whatever, you're totally welcome to. This is my last point. Learn to love losing. When you start thinking about running for office or doing other big things, a lot of people are going to have a lot of advice for you. And number one, I would like you to remember that advice is usually more about them than it is about you. So get your head in a space where you can, I try to visualize putting on like a helmet where I can receive, that filters all the advice coming in, and it filters it into the intention where people say, oh, I care about you and I want you to succeed. Even though what's coming out of their mouth is, you might need to do your hair differently, or I'm not sure those earrings are going to work on television, or shouldn't you lose some weight before you start campaigning, or I don't think you speak very professionally. All of those things, a lot of the advice that you get, or, oh, I think there's somebody else, the governor has picked somebody who's going to run for that seat, so I think you would lose. I don't think you could do it. All of that kind of advice, put your helmet on and hear it as somebody saying, I care about you and I want you to be successful. and then disregard what the details are, because nobody's ever going to give you, they're going to give you all the reasons that you shouldn't run. And in fact, that's what I will do if you call me and say, I'm thinking about running for office. I go, okay, well, let's work through the worst case scenarios. But then I'll tell you to just ask for forgiveness, not permission. Okay, so that's number one in the love losing. Lose, don't worry about it if people are telling you you're going to lose. Great. The next piece is losing is a really important part of a long-term strategy. How many times do you think the women's soccer team has lost a game? Like each individual member. Like how many times, oh, I'm blanking on names right now. How many times has Megan Rapinoe lost a soccer game? Like a lot, right? Because if she only played in games that she could win, how good would she be right now? Not that good. Yeah. And this, I do like a TED style talk about losing, and I use pictures of kids on soccer fields to communicate to grownups. Like if you think losing is an important enough way of teaching a lesson that you're going to send your kids out to lose on the soccer field or the softball field, or, you know, to fail over and over again, then it's good enough for you too. Then you have lessons to learn from losing too. So think of yourselves as, like, if you want to be Olympic soccer players, you've got to lose a bunch of games. Not enough people think about that when they think about political campaigns. If you want to get better at doing political campaigns and being a candidate, you got to be the candidate. I have a bunch of friends who have run for office as candidates after years, sometimes decades, as political consultants. You can tell a candidate everything they need to know. And to a person, all of those folks have come to me and said, KP, it's totally different being the candidate. Or I don't know how that, I thought that reporter was, I didn't think she was going to actually write down everything I said. Like things that political consultants know all the time. When people were candidates, they had to learn it all again. The only way to learn about being a candidate is to do it, and do it when you're going to lose, and build it into your trajectory. An acquaintance of mine posted on Facebook the other day, was a key part of Pete Buttigieg's team, starting when he ran for the chair of the Democratic National Committee. And the post was 4 years from mayor of South Bend to cabinet appointee. And remember, he lost races in those 4 years. So that's, losing is a really important part of a long-term strategy of learning how to be a better candidate. And I highly recommend, like, run, if you ever want to run for school board or for town council, run for Congress first. Like, pick a time when you're definitely going to lose and get all the firsty stuff out of the way. Learn how to ask for money, and learn how to give a stump speech, and learn how to knock on doors. Do all that stuff without being super stressed about whether this one knock is going to make the difference in the race. Like, run to lose first. You won't hear that from a lot of people, and it goes against, you know, what we as humans want to do. But if you're serious about it long term, or if you're not serious, that's the other thing. Give it a try, see if you love it or hate it. It's totally fine. There are a ton of skills and opportunities that open up when you put yourself out there. You'll collect a whole different set of people who are newly interested in you for running. So if you have ever even thought partially about running for anything, definitely get on campaigns and help, but also don't be afraid of losing. Run even if you think you're going to lose. Every time you run, you'll emerge 30% smarter, stronger, better, faster. And then there will be a couple of races where you can say, I believe that we will win, and you will be there. I'm going to go look at the other screen right now. Okay, I'm going to do Q&A, but before we do that, I would just like to take a moment and notice if my small speech on losing has made anybody's hand go higher on thinking about whether they will run for public office at any point? If your hand has gone higher, just raise your hand. If I have increased your proclivity, your likelihood to run. Okay, anybody raise your hand if I've decreased your ability, your likelihood to run. If you're like, oh, losing, I don't want to do that. Anybody? No? Yay, we all love losing. All right, that's what I got. Hit me with your Q&A.
I have one.
Fantastic.
If
Wait,
I wanted to,
hold on, I'm looking for your face. Who's talking? Probably I can go into speaker view. I'll use my tech. Haha, I got it.
if I were to go and try to run for anything tomorrow, where would I start?
Yeah, start by finding somebody who has that job and talk to them. And across party lines, people are really elected officials. It's their whole job to work with you, right? There are some other power dynamics going on, so don't expect an elected official to bless you, to say, oh, you should definitely run for my seat, but just go interview them, ask them about their first race and why they decided to run for that office and what they expected and what was different from what they expected, and just talk with that elected official. And it's the opposite of asking for permission, right? But as many people as you can talk to and say, okay, if you were me, what would you do? And what's your advice for me? But then be prepared to totally ignore it and filter it all through your helmet. But you'll learn a lot, whether or not it's what they intended you to learn, you'll learn a lot talking to all those folks, and especially the folks who hold the job that you want. And if you don't know what job you want, talk to a bunch of people. Does that make sense, Lisa? Who are you going to go talk to?
You.
Okay, good. I'm a good start. You can email me and we will set up a time. Okay, who else? What? No one else?
Avery's got her hand up.
Oh, yay. Oh, good. I can't see now I can only see the speaker. Go for it.
So, since you live in DC, how do you feel about everything that's going on?
How do you guys feel?
I don't know.
Disturbed and embarrassed.
Disturbed and embarrassed. Elise, what are a couple words for you? Elise is just straight up thumbs down. She does not feel good. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I have a lot of complicated feelings, I think. One thing that I did that I was different than a lot of my friends and neighbors is I intentionally did not watch or listen to anything as it was unfolding. I was safe in my house. We were under a curfew that started at 6 p.m. and I was spending time with my partner's family, so I got to his house before 6 p.m. But otherwise, I did not follow anything live. I didn't listen to the radio. I waited because I knew that it would get resolved somehow. I knew there was nothing I could do to help. And it was a way of controlling the trauma to me. I think a lot of my friends and colleagues felt personally traumatized because it was their workplace or a place they had worked. People that I got into office were putting on gas masks and running through tunnels. And so I decided for protecting my own mental and emotional health, I didn't need to take that traumatic ride in the moment. So I've been able to control a little bit what I have been absorbing. I was taught when I was growing up that the whole purpose of having the Second Amendment that gives citizens the right to bear arms was so that an armed militia could take over the government. And so I was interested, I didn't hear anybody talking about that, but that was kind of an angle that I was thinking about all day, is like, okay, well, if you guys are uncomfortable with this, maybe we should think about redoing the Second Amendment, because this is what it's for, is for armed coup. Other smart and educated people will have different thoughts on that. That was just what landed on me. So basically I have not been surprised or shocked. And I think that people who have been paying attention, when the president was first running, a lot of us were like, he's lying. He can't do any of this. He's just saying what people want to hear. And then he got into office and did a lot of the stuff that he had been saying he was going to do, that nobody thought he was going to do. And so I think folks who were surprised weren't paying very much attention. And I think we have a lot of work to do. Well, I'm interested to see, right? So then I have a lot of curiosity. I'm curious to see if it will unite right and left in a way that hasn't happened in the past few years. I'm nervous about it changing the levels of access to the Capitol and to state houses around the country. I think it's really important to be able to walk in and walk up to your legislator and say, hey, how'd you vote on that bill? And here's how I would like you to vote. And that's one of the things that I really love about our political system. So I'm curious to see how it unfolds. I think, I think anyway, I'm sad. I'm a little bit scared. I'm not surprised. And the things that I'm most afraid is the wrong word, but that I hope won't happen, are that this will become an excuse for making it harder to access our decision makers. Those are kind of that's a big question. I should maybe have had that question from a therapist before I had it from you guys, but it's all right. Any reactions to that? What are you all thinking? Oh, chat's open also. If folks don't have reactions, we'll go back to Pip. But Avery, do you want to share? Avery, you asked that question. Do you want to share any of your thoughts about it, feelings?
I think it's terrible, and I think that I don't know. I think it's like other people said, it's terrible and embarrassing, and it's wrecking, I guess. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think it's hard for a lot of people to see. We get so used to hearing about conflicts in other countries, and I think it's hard for people to, I think a lot of people are in the America's better than that. We don't have coups. We have peaceful transitions of power. And I don't, once you start learning about the constitutions that are put into place around the world, Rwanda has the highest percentage of women in elected office because they just redid their constitution after a lot of conflict, and they wrote it into their constitution. So I think a lot of people who believe that we are the best got really surprised. But democracy is expensive. And one of the costs of having legislators available to the public is that they're available to the public when the public decides to riot. So, I do not think this was okay. And also, I do think it's important that we are protecting our ability to protest peacefully into the future. And then the other thing that just is really still sticking in my craw is at the peaceful protest this summer, the Capitol steps were lined with National Guards folks. They had been called in advance for Black Lives Matter protests. So when a bunch of white folks who brought guns, which is illegal in DC, and said they were going to come take over the Capitol, nobody was prepared for them. But when there were, bunch of people of color saying, hey, it's not okay to have police shooting us, for them, the National Guard was called early and they were fully armed on the steps of the Capitol. So I'm hoping that this happened at a time when we can ask those questions too. Who are we being prepared for? Whose voices are we gonna allow? And whose are we not? So lots of hard questions. Pip has a question.
So one of my questions is what is your favorite thing about campaigning?
This is weird, but it's that it has an end date. A deadline. And I think I feel this way about holidays too. Like I'm a perfectionist. I am always going to want stuff to be better. I've worked really hard to train myself out of that. So I have a lot of mantras like done is better than perfect, and good enough is good enough, and let's do it rough and ugly first. And it's been that's like one of my growth edges, is to get stuff done and out and know that it's fine. And that's what I love. I love a lot about elections, but that's my favorite thing, is knowing that there's a deadline. No matter how much you do, no votes will be cast after polls are closed. So you're always up against a ticking clock, and it puts a lot of fantastic pressure on you. And then also, that it's over. Like, that no matter what, you cannot do anything the day after the election to change its results. So I love that. That fits with my, I tend to be a sprinter in mentality, right? Like, I prefer to just run hard and then vacation hard. And that fits, elections fit my predilection for that really well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Kathryn.
I'll stick around if people want me to, but if nobody needs me, you can email me anytime also.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I can ask a question?
I think so. If not, I'll stick around and you can ask me later.
Okay.
Let's get it.
I think we want to try and do some debate practice. So Stephanie, if you want to reach out to Kathryn, she's here. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we could pop into a breakout, or after your debate practice, I'll stick around or whatever.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to. Can we shift from gallery mode? I think. We were going to move into a quick stretch break by Avery. So Avery, we've seen Avery before. Avery Newcomer is a Wilton Junior. She's on the Lady Warriors swim and dive team, and she's a Girl Scout. She enjoys cake decorating, playing the ukulele, and exploring nature. So I'm going to hand over to Avery.
Okay, great. So let's see. I should make sure everyone can see me. So I thought we'd just do a little bit of quick yoga just to kind of stretch and breathe a little bit. So yoga is really good for posture, and because we were kind of talking about earlier about how posture is really good and expressing our confidence, and it's also really good for breathing, blood flow, and strength, flexibility. It's all really good. So I'm not sure if you guys can see me very well. Okay, so we're all going to stand up and get a little bit of space. And then we're going to start in this pose right here. So your feet are flat on the floor and hands together. And then you're gonna breathe in and reach your hands up to the ceiling and pull them out, stretch down and bend down and touch your toes. And exhale. And then just take a couple breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And then you can come back up, arms extended, breathe in, stretch up towards the ceiling and come back down. And we're gonna just do one more pose because I know we're a little short on time. And so you're gonna feet flat on the floor, and you're gonna take your one foot, your left foot, and you're gonna put it back and make sure that leg is straight, bend your knee a little bit, and then open up your arms and twist your body slightly. So you're like this. This is called the warrior pose. And then you can breathe in and out. And then we're gonna switch. So you both feet together, back leg, and then breathe in. Oh, bend your front knee so you can feel the stretch. And then breathe in and bring your arms to either side. Breathe in and out. And then you're gonna come back and then we can do one more. Up over your head, breathe in, breathe out. And then come back and back down. And there you go. And there's a lot of other yoga poses. Those were just a couple of my favorites. So.
Thank you so much, Avery. I feel so much better.
Of course.
Okay, now we're going to move into our debate section. So I'm going to hand over to three of our mentors, to Ellie, Isla, and Kavya. We've got a separate slide for each of them. So Ellie, you've seen before, but she's a senior at Ridgefield High School, and she is a debate star. She won 3rd place at the high school state debate tournament. She is a mock trial A-team lawyer for Ridgefield High School. She's a varsity debater and the team captain. And this is her 3rd year as a mentor in Miss President US. She's also co-president of the Miss President US Junior Board and a Gold Presidential Volunteer Service Award winner. I'm going to hand over to, sorry. I'll go ahead and introduce our other two. Sorry. Isla Nambiar is a junior at Wilson High School. She's a member of Amnesty International. She is a member of the debate team. She's involved with student government, and this is her 1st year as a mentor for Miss President US. And Kavya, you have seen before. She has been involved in Miss President. This is her 2nd year as a mentor for Miss President US. She's also a varsity debater, and she's a junior at Ridgefield High School. She's the treasurer on the Miss President US Junior Board, and she has demonstrated karate to us in the past. She is a 2nd-degree black belt in karate and an instructor of martial arts. I'm going to hand over to these 3 ladies to lead us in our debate orientation and activity.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Is it okay if I can go use the bathroom real quick?
Yeah, Stephanie, go ahead. Go ahead. You do you.
So, hey everyone, I'm Ellie. So just to start out, to kind of go over what is a debate. So the actual definition of debate is it's a formal discussion or argument between 2 people or multiple people, but usually 2 people, and each person puts forward an opposing argument. So usually there's one person who's supporting a motion. The motion is what everyone's debating, and they're called the affirmative. They're saying, yes, I think this is really important and we should do this. And then there's another person on the negative who does not like the idea. They're saying, no, this is not a good idea. This will cause more problems than it will fix. So those are the 2 sides, the affirmative and the negative. And debate happens in our schools. You can be on a debate team, or it also happens in our government. So a lot of people might have watched presidential debates, vice presidential debates. There's a lot of different debates that go on when people are running for government. And that's really important because it lets you know what policies they're going to have and what they say that they're going to do for the country. So that helps people have a better understanding of who they're going to vote for, because they can hear them talk to each other in work loans and see how everyone would solve those problems. Debates also let people's opinions and voices be heard. It gives everyone a chance to share their perspective on how they would fix a problem. And then it lets you address other people's issues and other people's ideas as well. So that's why debate's really important.
So for elements of debate, one of the most important parts is civility. It's really important to be polite to your opponents. You have to be attacking their arguments and not them. And a huge part of debate is that you're not necessarily just going against everything that the opponent is saying. It's more about convincing the judge that you're correct and your standpoint is, in the end, more beneficial to whatever you're talking about. And that's a really big part of debate because you do have civility points. And if you end up attacking your opponents for things that aren't really in their argument, you do get in trouble for that. And then with debate, there's a lot of public speaking. So making eye contact with who you're speaking to, whether it be the judge or your opponent, is really, really important. And articulating your words is also really important because you want the judge to be understanding everything that you're saying, and you want your opponents to be able to understand what you're saying, as well as your partner. You have to speak slowly, which is something that I'm not that great at. But you have to be speaking slowly so that everyone understands what kind of point you're trying to put across. And that kind of goes in with articulating. So you want to make sure that you're not really yelling or moving too fast. And then in the end, you want to be organizing your argument really well and going through your points in a way that everyone can understand, because it's not just you that you're trying to convince.
All right, hi guys, I'm Kavya. So I'm just gonna really quick go over the format of a debate. So the first is an introduction where you're going to introduce your topic, what you're debating, and then you're going to give your contentions. Sorry, one second. Sorry, guys. Okay, so your contentions are your points that you're making about your motion. So if you're on the affirmative, you're going to say these are the 3 reasons why this thing should happen, or why I agree with this. And so usually you want to have 3 really strong ones. Then you have your rebuttal. After both sides have presented their introductions, you'll say why your argument is better than the other's argument. And remember, no attacking the other person, just their argument. And this is where you introduce a lot of your facts and your evidence. And then you'll give your closing, which is a summary of your argument. So this is when you think about the big picture. So you say something like, the scenario we're proposing is the ideal scenario, and that is because of this, this, and this. And you would then summarize what your reasons were, just to remind everyone of the most important things that you said. And yeah.
So the format of a debate, it kind of has, when you're making your argument, you want to include 4 main things that you want to remember. The first one is called your assertion or your claim. So what is your claim? What's your main idea that you're trying to prove? So it could be that chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream, school uniforms should be mandatory, any claim that you're trying to make, this is your main idea. And then to prove your claim, you want to have usually about 3 strong points, which is your reasoning. And in debate, we can also call them contentions. And those are your reasons, your 3 main reasons that your issue is the best. So, or your position is the best. Your 3 main reasons that chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla, whatever idea you have. And you also want to talk about your impact. How is your stance going to impact society or the status quo, which is what's currently happening now? So you want to think about, if school uniform mandatory, how is that going to affect the school, for example? So you want to include that in your argument as well. And then finally, your evidence. Obviously, you want to go into your debate with evidence that what you have is right, evidence that chocolate makes you happy, maybe. So if you're going to have research or statistics or anything else that you have to back up your assertion and to back up your reasoning to show that what you're saying is really true.
Okay, so we're gonna go into our breakout rooms now. And we want you to practice making your own debate. So one thing you can do is just pick any topic. It can be as silly as what your favorite ice cream is, or it can be something current or some issue that you care about. So you're going to first make your introduction, which will be your 3 major ideas. Then you'll make your rebuttal, which is when you discuss the logic of your argument and why it is more logical than the other's argument. And remember, this is where you present your facts, your evidence. And then you'll give a closing, which is a summary of your argument. And you'll briefly say every major point that you brought up, and then think about the big picture. In the long run, why are you right?
These 2 ladies are aides in the Senate, and this happened yesterday, right before the rioters breached, got inside the Capitol building. They had already begun evacuating the representatives and the senators. And I don't know if anybody knows what's in that box, but it's actually all the electoral votes. It is tradition that the electoral votes are written on paper, and the votes from all 50 states are placed in that box. It's brought to the Senate floor where it's opened, and the vice president counts each ballot. So while this riot was starting to get out of hand and everybody was being evacuated, everybody forgot about the box, except these 2 young ladies who thought to get the votes to take them to safety. And I guess it's safe that we can assume if they had not, those votes would have been lost. Somebody would have probably destroyed them. And so we wanted to highlight the quick thinking and the bravery of these 2 young girls, young ladies, who took control of a situation and saved part of our democratic process.